purely a preserve of the state globally. But safety is you. Safety starts with you. Because safety means that you are in a condition, a safe condition where you can deliver your work. So, largely, that's it. Are you in an environment where you can do your professional work? Then you are safe. Once you are not in that condition, then, so don't limit safety or security to just you are. Even police have what is called the minimum, the UN minimum for, law on using force. So mtu asikwambie hatukienda kwa demonstration ati polisi hawezi tumia risasi. Sio? Hakunanga. The minimum, the UN guidelines on the minimum use of force allows police officers to use a gun if their life is endangered. It's allowed. Sio? People talk about alipigwa tu na risasi, even in demonstrations. Remember, even a rubber bullet can kill you. Sio? So many of us wanasema tu alipigwa tu akamaliza. So it's allowed. So for us journalists, and journalists are protected under some special rules. That's why we can never arm a journalist with a panga or a gun under the law. Because once you are armed, you become an active combatant. Sio? Because you are armed. You are either thug, a police, or whatever you are. So if you read the Geneva Convention, and it's a law, you will quote at your own time. The Geneva Convention identifies us as the journalists are people who are neutral in a war. The basic work you do is just reporting. So that's why if you are arrested, if for example you are arrested in a war as a journalist and you are not embedded, you are taken as a prisoner of war. You are not supposed to be harmed under the Geneva Convention. You enjoy protection. But once you are embedded, you already identified yourself with one army. Then once you are arrested, an enemy can kill you and say he was already. That's why when our journalists go to Somalia with this, KDF as embeds, they lose protection under the Geneva Convention. Al-Shabaab will get you, they will kill you. And you cannot claim under the Geneva Convention that you are safe as a journalist. Now it's tricky obviously because again alone how do you go to Somalia in Al-Shabaab? But once, because even if you look at the rules of being embedded in a military, once you are embedded as a journalist, you know they even give you the uniform. Remember, they assign you a number, they assign you under one of the units, you are under commandant, and that commandant is supposed to treat you as a soldier now, not as a journalist. That's why even when you are running, for example, in an exchange of fire and you are running, and they find that with your cameras you are dragging them behind and you are embedded, they kill you. Because that's the rules of the game, that you don't leave any of your soldiers behind alive akishikwa ataenda kuuza siri pande ile, sio? So there are a lot of merits and demerits of being embedded as a journalist with the military when they go to war. So safety just means that. So under safety, it can be legal safety. And Brian will tell you how many times he's threatened with suits. Brian writes for Nation. And he can tell you how many suits he gets or threats to be sued he gets. The last time was just 2 weeks ago when Duale was harassing him online. He just heard the Nation was doing a story on Duale, his Concord companies, the way they are stealing. And to him, he thought it's Brian. So Duale went online. Actually, started trolling him. There's a journalist who was trying to extort me from Nation called Brian Wasuna. I know he's writing a story on me, and he was not even doing a story on him. So, but the story came out, and the people start saying, and that's a safety issue. And we talked with him, and he knows what he's doing. So there are purely legal threats. You remember the issue of Sang and the Hague, where you are finishing 3 years away from, and others. How many of you have been taken to court on various stories? So that's a legal threat. So there are purely legal threats. And they make your work. Many of the small stations, when you are sued in a court of law, they sack you. You know those things. So once you lose your job, then it becomes a threat to you. So you must look at the legal threat. And other than Article 34 of the Constitution, we talk about Article 33, 34, and 35 that provides uhuru wa vyombo vya habari and all. Remember, there are still laws in our Constitution that still have conflicting implications with the current laws. So while we have very progressive articles, 33, 34, and 35, but remember, Reporters Without Borders has always rated Kenya very poorly. Our status has been going down every year. Why? And people are saying, We're even better because the last constitution, the only section that mentioned press freedom was section 79 of the former constitution. At least now it is there. But why? Because we have not cleared some laws in our statutes that are still conflicting badly with the 33, 34, and 35. And a number of them are there. Quote, any act, even the Media Council Act itself has issues, you remember. Kika fines 20 million against a media house, 1 million against a journalist. You remember, those are still laws that claw back on the bigger thing around Article 34. Defamation, they're still there. See, under the Official Secrets Act, if you are found with some information in this country, you'll be sued in a court of law. We're joking, under the KDF Act, under Article 283 of the Constitution, and the KDF Act, to be specific, or National State Intelligence Act, if you read those things, if, for example, today you got 10,000 resignation letters from KDF officers, and you have them even with the letters they have resigned, for whatever reason, if you publish such a story in Kenya, you'll be arrested and charged in a court of law. Why? When Kenya, KDF is still in Somalia, the country is still in an active war. So principally, we are in a war, so long as KDF is still in Somalia. Now you get such a story and publish, you'll be under section 233, I think, in national security. And if you read the article, even 33 has exceptions on the issue of national security. But under KDF Act, they will charge you under demoralizing the army. So you'll have your letters, 10,000 is true, you verified, but they will also be quoting the act and saying under national security, and that's why the debate around the ADI thing, how many soldiers die. It's not that the government doesn't know, but under national security, if you release, those are called operational information. Once you say we lost how many soldiers, what is the implication to the other soldiers? What is the implication to the Al-Shabaab who will now say we killed so many, So it's purely, you must balance. So as a journalist, you get information, but as a journalist, you are a gatekeeper. You check against the law. If I publish this story, what is the implication? So that's a security threat to you. Because if you are not conversant, under the Books and Newspaper Act, for example, we still have a law called Books and Newspaper Act, 1972, I think. Now, what that law says is that for you to register a newspaper, you must register by the Attorney General, CEO. You must pay a bond of 5 million. Any newspaper must go to the Attorney General every day at 3 in the morning to be signed off. So that's the Books and Newspaper Act. It's still in our act. So under Article 34, we are saying, kuna uhuru wa vyombo vya habari, you can register. But under the Books and Newspaper Act, you can still be charged. And told, will publish Gazette without taking it to the AG to be stamped and cleared. So there are about 13 laws in our country which are still a problem. Under, for example, the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2012. Read section 30, 31, and it's very clear. It says if a journalist gives room for a person to propagate, talk about, or whatever on terrorism, you are liable for a 30-year jail. It's in our laws. And that's why some of you who talk to this Yasin Juma, some of you know Yasin Juma, formerly of NTV. You'd see he was arrested one time. Up to date, he has never been charged. They still have his laptop and everything. They arrested him and say they're charging him under. You saw, it happened the other day to Akinalai. And it might be true or not true. Police will use anything. But they are charging them under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. That they shared photos of dead people from Mandera. You see. So those are still laws in our act. So as a journalist, you can get information. In fact, if you read the program code for Communication Authority, those of you who are radio guys, you know, it talks about even if you host somebody in your studio who is still going to talk about his criminal activities and what, immediately after the program, you hand them over to the police, or you also arrested and charged as an accomplice in a crime. Sio? When mnafanya broadcasting, mnajua hiyo. So that's why we're saying that even as Article 34, 35s are there, but there are still laws in our act that you can still be charged. If you ask guys who have been covering Lamu, Kwale, the journalists there, they will tell you, the more, in fact, we have now 3 journalists who have been converted to Al-Shabaab in this country. There's one who is on active surveillance by the anti-terrorism police unit in this country. There's one who even crossed to Mogadishu and came back. So the thing is, you are a human being. what happens that when you consistently write about something, you associate with those people, you start feeling sympathy also. So there are colleagues who have been reporting on Al-Shabaab, how they are, and you start also feeling, oh, kwa nini jamaa wanateso, gradually, you get recruited. I know colleagues in Malindi largely who even their phones for survival tactics, they had to cram the Al-Shabaab, the Muslim prayer. Because that's when you are arrested in those places, you remember when you are kidnapped, the first thing they start with is if you know those things, to recite. So it forced colleagues to know those things, who are they are not Muslims, but they had to. Now gradually, you know the implication. Am I making sense? I'm an teacher. So legally, what I'm saying that as a journalist, there are still laws that still make your life unsafe. So when you are writing, when you are doing your stories, you must always get your story and check it against existing laws. Sio, National Cohesion and Integration Act is still there on mambo ya nini ya hate speech na nini. And a number of journalists have been charged in court of law. So once you are charged, you are sacked, you have lost safety. Sio, because once you are sacked, you have lost a job, then you are safe, you are not safe. You can't pay rent, you can't pay what. So don't limit safety of journalists to just physical. It has legal implication. If, for example, Sang stayed in Hague for 3 years, when you come back, I mean, I'm just using an example, when you come back, is your family the same? Is your life the same? It has changed. So that's what we are talking about, that legally somebody can use the law. What are they doing in Rwanda, what they are doing now in Tanzania to Eric Kabendera is, they will charge you knowing you are a journalist because of your journalism work, but they charge you under another law where nobody will come near you. So they knew if they charge Kabendera under any media related, all media people will all over. So they go and say they charge you under tax evasion. Unaona, hata kila mtu anasema kumbe jamaa hata hiyo gari anaendeshanga lipi tax, So even and now they turn again and say, unaona waandishi, you are not supporting government when it's arresting people who evade tax. But in their head, they know very well they are not arresting you for that crime. And that's why we tell journalists be cautious. Because of the nature of the work you do is sensitive and what. Know where you stay, know who you relate with, know what you do. Because somebody will use something unrelated to journalism. As you do this work, as you do this investigation, you need to be clean in your other life. Because somebody can use it to mar your life. So, it's not easy, we are saying. It's a difficult thing, but as a journalist must know. Somebody can use a very unrelated thing and they charge you. In Uganda, they killed a Rwanda journalist at 2 in the morning from a bar. And this guy, we warned him, we told him, Kagame was coming to Kampala for a holiday. It was a December holiday. And we tell all the Rwanda's fugitives, especially journalists, take care, because when Kagame is visiting Uganda, and Museveni and Kagame are friends, they are schoolmates, they were in the same high school, they are close friends. Almost all the Rwandese intelligence were trained in Uganda. So they are, and they talk the same language, remember. So I told them, now that Kagame is in Kampala, you must get out of Kampala. We paid even a room for him in Kisumu to come temporarily. The guy didn't listen. Because when Kagame is in Kampala, the security goes up, because of, So they timed him at 2 in the morning. He was coming from a bar. Amechukua boda, 18 bullets. They killed. Kusha, maisha yako yameisha. Si tutapiga tu mdomo, haki zetu tufunge bana kidogo, maisha yanaendelea. So sometimes, don't endanger yourself. Don't expose yourself unnecessarily. And you remember some of you have related with Akina Alan Namu, Akina Mohamed Mohab, Akina Okari. Sometimes it forces you even not to go to the shop during the day. So there's the legal challenges. Obviously, there's the psychosocial. Muko hapa, how many of you have paid rent? School fees? Sio? And you are working. People see you on TV every day, unangara huyu ndio kijana yetu, sio? But hapa kahawa huwezi kununua, Your auntie amekutumia police call mia asubuhi hata kujibu, unangojea media kanzo kama itatoka kitu kidogo ya fare ndio. So journalists live a very harassed life, sio? Am I not wrong? It's a very harassed life. You went to school, people see you on TV, wewe ndio una interview governor, wewe ndio, it's a high level, but hapa kwa mfuko. Kitu nil by mouth. So you walk a very disturbed man or woman. So, sindio? And as a person you go through hell. People expect you to put on smartly when you are going to job, but they have not paid you for 6 months. So where do you get the money to buy that cloth? Na ukija umechafuka anasema huwezi enda kwa screen ukiwa hivi, sio? So you are there, you are struggling. But huku nje nobody cares, nobody knows. But once that is happening, you are unsafe as a human being. Because you are mentally, once your mental state is not okay, then your rest of the body is not okay. See? And those of you work in radio especially, you have seen, when somebody is so troubled, akona vitu mingi, hata productivity yake inakuwa chini, sio? Even because journalism is a creative work, inataka kama uko settled ndio uwe creative, uandike script, but now it comes, mtoto ya mjomba wako hospitali, rent hujalipa, you have all those things. So si amekupigia story uende milimani, unataka kwenda but unataka kwenda mguu, taxi ama bodaboda mwanamke kwa deni hujalipa, so you are thinking, sio? So you take a bodaboda, unaenda mpaka karibu na hoteli, unashuka unalipa taxi ya 100 uingie na gari, it's a very troubling life. But you must show. So you live a life that's not yours. And all the time, it affects you. And it affects your productivity. Am I wrong? And that's unsafe. Because then once you are in that condition, even when, especially those of you who are presenters, sometimes unaongea vitu, unajipata unaongea vitu, unaendelea zenye zinaku-expose to defamation. Sio? Because your mind is not there. You are hosting a program, you are on air, but you are thinking about your kid who is sick, you haven't paid rent. Sio? Ama hospital. You are a human being. So, it distracts. And the bosses will not care. They just say, alikuja hapa akiwa mzuri, sasa siku hizi amekuwa on air kidogo, kichwa imeanza kumpanda. Sio? They are not looking at the troubles you are going to them. They think you are becoming arrogant. And you lose a job. So that's already an insecurity thing. So don't get too obsessed with your job. Balance your job and your other things. Sio? Pata muda kama ni welfare group uende uchange, kama watu wanaenda kuona kashamba Kumbulu wewe pia uende, hata kama utanunua unatembelea tu kwa watu hapo unasema unataka kuona kashamba, sio? But some of us are too busy with jobs to a level where we don't balance. And that's why people start saying that mtoto wangu hawezi enda journalism kwa sababu hataolewa. Those stereotypes are there. Because some of us never create. Once you are in the room, forget mambo ya newsroom. Spend with your time now, sio? Sikiza mtoto wako, bwana yako ama bibi yako, muongee mambo mengine. Then kesho ukirudi, rudi mambo ya kazi, sio? Don't get married to a job, which most of us have done, sio? We are too obsessed all the time. Hata hapa, unaona mtu anajipigia. Hello, hakuna mtu amempigia, anaenda hapa. Gavana, kuna gavana, na namba ya gavana yenyewe hauna. So those are social cycle, and it's a disease. Once you reach that condition, your job will go for psychosocial attention. And we have helped colleagues. You can't cover things like KDF, Baragoi killings. Those killings, and most of you. And you say, I'm just okay. You can't. Even the military themselves are, trauma counselors. So once you have come from such an environment, it's always good to take a break, go and have a psychologist to talk to you. It helps you to because there's nothing. Some of you report from areas you come from. The people who died there accident, some of them are your classmates. Sio? Ama ni mtu unajua utasemaje ati nitawa tu, sio? So it affects you. Initially the reaction is unajifanya huko, the journalists are hard skinned, hiyo mimi nimezoea, but eventually unaanza kupata mtu mwenye alikuwa normal anatembeanga akiongea peke yake njiani. Anafanya hivi. Mnafikiria sijui nini, gradual. And that's why you see gradually, and studies have been done by Dina Kitu. We have published a book actually on trauma counseling for Kenyan journalists. And one of the reactions, when journalists have so much pushed stress, one of the ways they deal with pressure or stress is sex, which is largely unprotected. And that's why you see sex in most of our newsrooms very casual. Am I wrong? You hear Fulani and Fulani, they are not girlfriend, they are not boyfriend, but sometimes it's a stress reaction, either in the newsroom or outside. Sometimes it's a reaction to stress. In most cases, it's drinking, excessive drinking. And you have seen colleagues in our newsroom, we know them, who drink. Now remember, some of these people are so young. Because an average age for a journalist in Kenya is 24 first degree holders. Between them. So if you are drinking na kila siku jana vile tuliajana bwana mimi nimetoka hapa asubuhi. Hiyo ndio maisha yake every day. Can that person invest in anything? Can that person even progress career wise? Now at the age of 26, you can't progress. Where else do you go? So we must start thinking. We have very senior colleagues, as Jude will share with you, who retired. They were even paid those 28 millions in nation when they were leaving. Right now they're asking for 100 bob for fare. Somebody who was your senior for so many years, respect, alitoka juzi akiretire akipewa, but because you had isolated yourself from the whole world, wewe ulikuwa tu maisha yako newsroom, mpaka hata huku invest ujue hata watu walishanunua shamba Kitengele, you don't do anything but you have the money. So by the time now you start thinking about where do I start, na pesa unajua vile ikiingia vile ideas zinaingianga kwa kichwa. You know, when you don't have money and when you have money is the same. Kama hauna inakusumbua, nikipata tu mtu akupatie milioni moja sasa hapa uone ideas vile zinaingia kwa kichwa. You see these people who win lottos. Ameshinda 200, anataka kununua gari, kununua nyumba, kujengea mama yake nyumba. So unashinda 1 million inafanya vitu yote. You know, ideas. Ama ni wrong. So that's how, and it affects you as a human being. And you have seen colleagues, some of you are news editors, you know this thing we are talking about. A person who came in, a very bright journalist, young, alikuwa anafanya vizuri. All of a sudden, unaanza kuona tu mtu anaenda hivi. You know, it's problems that are related to psychological, which he is not dealing with. Now they affect his work, the next unamfuta, sio? And you have seen, and now the sacking is so bad because they write in your letter that you are redundant. Now at the age of 26, a graduate holder, and you have already been called a redundant. How do you look for a job elsewhere? It's a challenge. The next, obviously, is the issue of physical threats and related. Physical. And colleagues have been beaten. Hata saa hii tuko na case saa hii Nakuru, sio? Kaptemba police, a guy who went to do some story yesterday, have been arrested, they were beaten, cameras, they slept in. Police wanasema sasa ati walikuwa wameenda extortion, which was not there. You have seen yourself, and others, you have had experiences where physically your life is threatened. While kitambo it used to be largely politics, Kina Hayemba, you remember the cases of Hayemba and Gachuri, you know, these are live things that you still remember. But even now in sports, Nani will tell you, Gilbert Wandera, every time there's a game between Gor Mahia and FC, he must be beaten in Nyayo Stadium, and that's football. The colleagues who write on policy, the entertainment pages, they will tell you what they go through in the hands of bouncers in clubs, sio? And these are very things you think entertainment has no threat, sio? But the bouncers wanawatandikanga, Elvis Ogina, my friend, alipigwa paka mgongo tukuza anatambeanga hivi. Na bouncer kwa club, sio? You know, so areas that traditionally thought are not dangerous. But almost all beats, in courts, you know what goes, in the courts, especially colleagues at the coast, covering those Akasha-related, those Al-Shabaab-related cases, family wanakuja, na wewe ndio unawekanga mtu wetu kwa picha, you know, they have literally, in fact, kuna mwandishi amepigwa jicho, amepoteza jicho, in the courts, he was taking a photo of suspects. So those are physical threats and others, sio? Wengine mnajua, where you are trailed in the vehicle, the bar, mtu anashasema wewe ndio fulani. So those are threats that we must deal with. Then obviously now the digital, online. Both phone and your mitandao, sio? Big threats. You can be trolled online, you have been called, unatumiwa SMS, unatukanwa online. Like I was saying, somebody picks your name. And you see now, as a respected person, a professional, when somebody picks your name and says, he was trying to extort me, you know, what does that do to you as a person, professionally? You know, even your employer, kama si mtu anakutrust, it brings you problems. But even elsewhere, see, and a person at a level of Adan Duale, you know, how many people follow him online? So that when he puts you online and says, you are extorting him, what is the implication? Then what is the implication for his followers? See, you start expanding. These are people who can kill you. And these are people he doesn't have control over, you know. There are just people in the village there when you wanasema huyu ni mtu yetu. So you start seeing those challenges. You remember Stella Mrumba when he did the corruption and the Minister of Health story, where somebody even went to a photo when he was still in primary naked and put it online and say, angalia huyu kuanga na nguo sasa anatafuta pesa ya nguo na extort ni anaandika story kama, you know, what happens to you as a person. You see, if you are not strong, it's difficult. So those are things we are seeing now. When somebody says Githeri media, or when Edwin Sifuna says journalists in takataka, you know, what is the implication? It might just be a statement, but what comes out of such things? When somebody says journalists in Githeri or journalists in takataka, look at their followers. Credibility of journalists, you know, the levels now you're exposing, because that's the same thing, and now the followers will start thinking. See, remember when Akina Raila and Orengo said you boycott nation products? You know, what's the implication? And there's a time where nation vans could not go to Central, to Nyanza, you remember? So those are realities. Right now we are dealing a case in Kiambu and and Gatundu again, threats against a journalist. And sometimes when Kalonzo says your name betrays you, look at it in a bigger way. What is the implication of that statement to their followers? And that's why many of you, Kisumu, Ken, unakumbuka, in the Kodiaga, Media Max guys could not operate. We had to go and evacuate. They are Luos, yes, but simply because they work for Media Max, which was perceived to be opposition, they couldn't operate, I can tell you. And other places also. It was difficult for us. Even in Gatundu, when they tried, like the 2013 election, when they tried, when Royal Media, the chairman, SK was the chairman of the Pentagon, you remember? Even his own, Royal Media, Kameme and was Kikuyu, but in Central couldn't survive. We had to evacuate them, simply because of ownership. Not even that you have covered anybody's story, but somebody just says, Awanwa, Fulani, Ukambani, you know it. So it also pushes you as journalists to start first looking at the employer before you look at your work. Where you are a professional, you want to ignore, but when rules are so it became excessively difficult for colleagues to operate. Unrelated phones. How safe are we with these phones we work with? Online. Once you get an Android phone, an internet-enabled phone, and you go online, anybody can pick or drop anything in your phone. So, and a phone is yours. Nobody will tell you how to use your phone. It's purely your phone manners. So how do you talk? In the Kakamega town, Vihiga. Niko na historia otijilo. Na huyu tunamaliza na kwa boda boda. How many people in the streets are for or against that person you are talking? And it might just be unconsciously. Your editor called you and akuza uko wapi story gani unafanya, and you are briefing, but you are not conscious of the environment. Those of you who work in the cyber cafes, most of the people in the counties, especially those who work for Nairobi based, but you are in the county, you work in cyber. That's how you post your stories. You go to the cyber. Who owns those cybers? Largely are businessmen, MCS, politicians. Largely in our counties. You go to post your story, you have already done. Unaambia huyo cyber person attendant akusaidie kwa attach. Because most of the journalists here, we are computer users. We are not computer experts. Hata kwa attach audio ni shida. Kama ni urongo. Amen. Kujo saidie kwa touch. And it can just be very we are just saying kujo nisaidie amse. And in the talk I say unajua hii sio ndio saa 7 kwanza inagonga governor kabisa. The cyber attendant ni mtu ya MCA na MCA ni mtu mwenye ni wa willing. It starts there even just, but wewe unafikiria tu ni editors wangu Nairobi ni wanauza. But sometimes it's just with you in the cyber, or you typed a story ukaenda kuprint ukasahau kwa printer, you left in a hurry, you left, so somebody got, si mtu wa Citizen alikuwa hapa and they call. So sometimes just safety around yourself. What do you print? How do you work in a cyber? As you are typing your story, who is next to you in that cyber? You must be conscious. It might be somebody who followed you from somewhere. He wants just to know what you are doing. So that consciousness becomes very important for you as a journalist. Phone manners. If you put your Bluetooth here, all of you, utapata simu yenye connects wako si inajionyesha. All of you. That's how phones are. So in a matatu, in a public place, in a bar, in a church, there are a lot of people who can access information from your phone, not necessarily because they ask you for permission. Because what Bluetooth does, once your phone is on and mine is on, I can pair you. Next minute, once it's active is you might be sending an SMS or calling. I can transfer all your messages and contacts from your phone to my phone without your permission. Especially Bluetooth. So how conscious are we sometimes the small things we do? So sometimes you also want to measure what do you put online, what do you suggest. It can, some of us overpost. We put so much information about ourselves online. Kiasi kwamba mpaka bathroom, mtoto wako, mahali anasoma, chakula ile umekula, my lovely hubby, all those things you have put online. So if I'm following you, it's so easy. I just go online, because you have, every time you are kid, wengine mnaweka hata mtoto 1 week online. Mjui children rights. Yes. My angel. Yes, he's your angel. But hiyo picha yenye umeweka mtoto wako leo ya angel leo akiwa mdogo, it can be used by somebody 10 years to come on a very unrelated thing. Na mtoto wako atakuchukia maisha yake yote, So let's manage some of these things, especially if you are journalists. Because like you are saying, right now you cannot go to the US without them check. It's now a requirement under the US visa application. They must check your social media life. It's official. There are people who, when you go for an interview, ukimaliza wanaanza kuangalia. Sio? So just be conscious about what you post online today. The internet never forgets. But as a journalist, there are some things you can only do them in your bedroom or your heart. And you have seen politics. Wewe mradi leo useme leo unapenda Kalonzo and you are a journalist. How will you continue working? You know? And you can just be honest. I mean, you are a human being. You can like somebody. But what will be the implication of that elsewhere? So there are some things inabidi tu uone na uweke kwa roho, sio? Yeah. And these are professionally accepted. You must live by the demands and requirements of it. Utasema wanatugag, wataki tuseme, but what to us is what is the implication of the thing you have said online or something. So sometimes you find some of us, we limit ourselves to very professional comments online, sio? Media, journalists must do this, you know, not that we don't have extreme positions. But sasa unajiangalia ile life yako kikazi, if you make such a comment, how will it be looked like? Sure. I mean, like Nation Standard, Radio Africa Group, they have a very strict social media policy. There are some things you can't do as a national reporter. I'm a brand. I mean, you can't. And not that they are gagging you. There are things you can do as an individual, I want to share, but there are some things. There's a time Macharia Gaido tweeted something as a person, Francis. But it was difficult for people to separate Macharia Gaido, this humanist person, and Macharia Gaido, the editor for Nation. You know, because huko nje watu hawajui. Nowadays, thieves know almost everybody has a phone. I mean, an average thing, even somebody, a kidnapper came to this office, to this class, the minimum he expects is the phones from each of us. Pesa unaweza, but so when somebody says mweke simu zenyu hapa, kama uko nayo weka. So there are simple things like phone, wallet, you know, ile mtu akikukua tu akisema mtoe, throw there. You know, you save your life, you will buy another one, God willing. Sio? Seek and report. Si ukweli kupata kwa WhatsApp group ama mahali umekaa, you seek. It's an active, you know, you are looking for a story. That's why we are teaching even that class on access to information. You are actively seeking. As a journalist, you wake up and look for stories. You don't wake up and become an armchair guy and sit in the newsroom and say, so wangu wataniletea. Sio? That's not a journalist. So as a journalist, we seek and report the truth. And truth involves the issues of verification, issues of facts. Sio? Second is the issue of minimizing harm. As a journalist, you don't wake up in your house and say, leo naenda kumaliza governor ama naenda kumaliza president. Sio? That's not your business. But in the process of doing a story, inaweza kumaliza. Sio? But that's not your intention that umeamuka tu at his story nafanya nimalize duali. You know, that's not the intention. You are doing a story, public interest, truth, and writing. In the process, if somebody gets hurt, it's your business. Sio? But it's not. Ukisikia mwandishi mwenye anasema huyo governor ataona. Hii story, na alafu nakapatia nafasi kaongea kanaringa katasikia. You know, that's not a journalist. That's not even a professionalism. Sure. So as a journalist, and this is where big principles like conflict-sensitive reporting, gender-sensitive reporting, disability-sensitive reporting falls here. That your business is not to go and cause harm and chaos to people. Your business is you are reporting. And remember now the principles of development journalism, constructive journalism. You know, you are reporting in a way to bring social change. Because journalists are agents of social change. See, you are writing as so what? See, because the first thing you are writing a story, anytime you are writing it, you are asking, I'm doing this so what? See, ama kuna wale mnaandikanga tu pipeline. So si ameleta. Gavana amesema mtu yangu sijasikika siku mingi kwa radio. Unaenda unatafuta kanda elastia akiongea sio wapi unakuja unatengeneza unamwekea. Usemi ilikuwa wapi alikuwa na address that. Kumbe ni kanda elastia. Sio? Na kakaingia the first person they call the morning ni mheshimiwa kakitu kama ingia kakitu iko. Then kwa wengine ushakula jana na story hii kutoka ndio unasikia yangu umezima simu 3 days. Wanakutafuta kuona. Very interesting life. So I mean, but journalism sense you are writing, you are doing an interview with women, with the candidates, for example. So the men and women. Why, if it's a Victor, you're asking where he was working, but when it's a woman, we start with where are you married, how many children, why? See, consistency. If it's professional, if it's education, ask them about education. If it's marriage, ask them about, we can't be, I mean, people with disability, conflict sensitive. When a Luo kills, tribes never kill, it's individuals. So when you say 2 Kikuyus have killed 1 Luo, what is the implication? Sio? Those are what we call conflict sensitive reporting, that you must be sensitive. When ukisikia tu kilipuzi likoni unasema ni Waislamu tena wenye itikadi kali. Wewe ulikuweko kapima, hata hukuweko. Wewe ulisikia tu kilipuzi isili, sio? And immediately ni Waislamu wenye itikadi kali. Wewe ulikuwa wapi ukiwaona, sio? Those are biases we grow with. So in journalism, it's not allowed. There's something that means something else in another subclub. So you must be sensitive to those things. I mean, so that you are not going to say something that causes problems elsewhere. Sio? So as a journalist, minimize harm. Kubwa sana. Accountability and transparency, big challenge here. Sio? We are expected, even if you read the Media Council Act, if you read Article 34 of the Constitution, it talks about journalists being independent from proprietorial government, advertisers, influence. Sio? How true is this? Ngumu, sio? Accountability, we are writing about others about accountability. How many of us are accountable? When Yamwea or Marwa tried to give us his M-Pesa transaction, kuna waandishi karibu wakufa. Mimi mnapatanga 100 hata ya kutoa hakuna. So he said he's going to share his transaction money, how he bribed sports journalists. Yamwea said he's bringing a what? He's bringing M-Pesa transaction. Watu karibu wakufe. Nilipigiwa simu na watu hata mkubwa, jina yangu umeona? Nakupa stress ya bure. Anasema jina sijaona, hata sijaangalia. So I mean the issue is we are writing about others, about being accountable and transparent. How transparent are we as journalists? Sio? When you are deciding a story you are doing, what factors make it? Sio? Is it because of your biases? Ulizaliwa maskini, so when you are writing about wa matajiri unakuja na ile machungu yako ya maskini ya kwenyu. Sasa wanasema mabwenyenye, you call them very tough names. Mabwenyenye, sijui nini, but kumbe you are fighting your own shadows, sio? Ukiandika story, remove your biases from the story and be a professional, sio? I mean that's professional. Ukikunywa bili mahali ukienda ukilewa ulipe bili, hapana toa press card. Kisha leo unaanza kuambia watu, kwani wewe hujui watu? Unatoka press card. Wewe wanangi TV. That's transparent, ndio? Mambo extortion, we must also be transparent. Kupanda boda lipa, panda tu press card na kuuliza askari unionangi kwa TV. Wewe kuwa journalist haimaanishi mtu mwingine hawa anaona TV akikumbuka sura yako, ndio? Your business, pay your bills. And the issue of independence, I think I have mentioned. I stop there. Any reactions quick for 2 minutes and then we change. I hope I've added some value to your professional life.